Welcome to the MS Gym podcast, where we give you the tools to live life by design, not by diagnosis. I'm your host, Brooke Slick, and this week I wanted to welcome you all back from summer break and give you a taste of what to expect this upcoming season. If you haven't already heard the announcement, Jodi Feltham, who already plays a huge role in the organization of the MS Gym behind the scenes, will be joining me this season as a co-host. To say I'm thrilled would be an understatement. Jodi's episodes will be focusing on member victories, struggles, and lifestyle, while my episodes will continue to feature guests related to all things MS life. Add to that freestyle episodes where Jodi and I bounce MS-related topics off of each other, plus select recordings of Jodi's fan favorite, Motivation Mondays, and the new season's guaranteed to keep you tuning in. Let's get started with Jodi's Motivational Monday from this week, titled Radical Acceptance.
Welcome to the MS Gym podcast. I'm your host, Jodi Feltham, and it's about to get real as we listen to the victories and struggles of our own MS Gym members. So let's dive in. Hi there, so glad you could join me for Motivation Monday. I hope that you are all doing well and adjusting to the change in weather around us and also in the environment around us as our battle with COVID continues on. So again, so glad you could join me today. Today I wanted to talk to you about a concept, and some of you may have heard of it and some of you may have not, but I encourage you to listen to today's talk and not get defensive when I bring up this topic. The issue is about a radical acceptance. And radical acceptance, you may ask, what is that? And radical acceptance is about accepting our current reality, about accepting what is happening to us right now or what has happened to us. And today I want to talk more in regards to our own lives and not necessarily about the situation around us, although it definitely does apply to the whole world around us, not just our life with MS. So a lot of times when we hear, people say acceptance, we shirk against that. Our whole body wants to run away. We recoil from that word. And I want to say that radical acceptance is not liking the situation we're in. It is not about approving of the situation we're in. Acceptance is not about being passive or about giving up. And it's certainly not thinking that we think it's fair. And, when I think about in my own life, all the stumbling blocks I've had into accepting my MS diagnosis, I think definitely the one that I always come back to is it's not fair. It's not fair that I'm 40, but that I'm struggling so much to walk when my 90-year-old neighbor, can jaunt down the street like it's nothing. It's not fair that that I have to struggle with this, that I have to struggle with my mobility, that I have to to carry the burdens of this disease on. And, I've shared so many times about when getting stuck, and radical acceptance is about helping us get unstuck. And so often in life, we get so focused on blaming or judging or raging against things when we're in a situation that we don't want to be in. And radical acceptance is simply saying it is what it is. And it doesn't mean that we like it, that we approve of it, that we're okay with what's going on, but it simply is accepting the reality that we find ourselves in. And so many times we've talked about the concept of being in the present moment. And that's what radical acceptance is about, is accepting the situation I find myself in right now. And, with an MS diagnosis, it's important that we stay in the present moment because so often these awful labels come on us when we are diagnosed with MS, like, oh, you'll be in a wheelchair in 5 years, or, you better start planning for assisted living. And those things aren't radical acceptance, because we don't know what the future holds. And by living in the present moment, we don't need to spend our energy focusing on these things. We have other things that we can invest in, that we can dream about, that we can envision for our future. So in doing the reading about radical acceptance, I found some very interesting points, and they describe the difference between pain and suffering. Now, so often in life, right, the things that we find hard to accept are the painful things, right? A diagnosis, the ending of a relationship, the death of a loved one, right? Those things are painful, and no one gets to escape life on this planet without pain in some kind. And so radical acceptance is about walking towards that pain. And it's certainly something that we don't want to do, and that we don't like the thought of. But radical acceptance of the situation means that we move towards the pain in order to move past it. And when the reading that I've been doing, it talks about suffering. Suffering is self-inflicted. Suffering is when we don't want to deal with the pain, when we try to run away from the pain. That's when we end up in suffering, right? We end up in denial of the situation, so that pain is prolonged, and we get so focused on the injustice or what's not fair that we can't move past it, that we can't make choices to better our situation. Now, with MS, this very present moment can look very different from moment to moment. And if you're like me, MS doesn't change in my body on a daily basis. It can change on an hourly basis. It can change moment by moment. Every time I sit up, I don't know what my body's going to do when I go to stand up again. If it's going to rebel, if it's going to be super spastic, or whether my legs are going to work well for me. So radical acceptance in the moment is accepting where I am right now. And it's not forecasting to the future. It's not forecasting necessarily even to later that day, because I don't know what my body's going to do later today. I just know what it can do right now. And so in that, I can make decisions to help myself to bring about healing. And one of the things that I love so much about the MS Gym is that in the last almost 3.5 years, it has evolved so much. And, there is so much in the programming, in the free resources, in the paid membership to meet us all where we're at in our MS journey, right? There's a fantastic new program that came out a little while ago called Bed Built, and it is fantastic. And it's for those days when we're struggling, and or just where we find ourselves in our current situation with MS, and those exercises can be done in a bed. And there's numerous programs that can be done seated in a wheelchair or a wheelie walker. And there's programs for those who walk with minimal assistance or no assistance. And there's just a wide scope of things that we can do, right? We have the tools, we have the power to make positive choices, to accept where we are, and do something about it. And, with MS, it's important that we do live in that area of, the present moment, about accepting reality where it is, because reading in the MOC or reading in other MS groups, when we live in denial of what's going on in our bodies, sometimes bad things can happen, right? Denial of, driving, and people get into accidents because they couldn't get their foot over to the brake pedal, or people not wanting to use an assisted device, and then they fall and they break their leg or they break their hip. Or for myself, few years ago, choosing a very stressful job and not thinking about the implications that it would have on my health or my ability to move and to exercise. So it's important to accept things as they are in this present moment. And it doesn't mean that we can't dream, that we can't have future goals or vision. Those things are important. We need that hope, but it's also important to embrace what we can do in this present moment. So my question to you today is, what things are you fighting against? What things are you fighting to accept? And I know there's so many things in life that happen to us that aren't fair, that we don't like, that we don't approve of. But we spend so much time trying to run away from those things when we could use all of that energy to make our situation better. So I hope you reflect on that today. And again, it doesn't have to be your MS diagnosis. It could be relationships. It could be family members. It could be someone's passing. It could be any number of things. And even certainly the situation we find ourselves with COVID. But I'd love to hear from you and just even some of your strategies. Like I've said, there's been some awesome people in my own life. I call them kind of my MS mentors because they've done well with this battle. They've had MS for 20, 30 years, and they've come to that place of radical acceptance. And they use their energy to make each day better and not get stuck in the past or get stuck in the fears of the future. So what does radical acceptance look like for you today?
Do you want to give a voice to your own story or learn more about the MS Gym? You can check us out at themsgym.com.
For more information on the MS Gym, check them out at themsgym.com on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. If you'd like to know what I've been up to lately, you can find me at brookslick.com. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next episode of the MS Gym podcast.